Welcome to PM Ready, your guide to becoming PMP certified. This is the lesson on schedule management documents. Part 3. A table of dependencies is a table in which all of the activities are listed, such as from your activity list, and for each activity it lists all of those activities that are predecessors to that activity, which must be completed or started before that activity. It also represents the relationship. If there's nothing listed in the relationship column, that's because it's the standard finish to start relationship. Any other sort of relationship or leads or lags should be recorded in this relationship column. From such a table of dependencies, you can then create your schedule network diagram. In this example, notice that I've listed activity C twice. The reason I've done this is that if there were two different types of relationships between C and B and between C and E, then this is how you would be able to record those different relationships in the relationship column. If there isn't a difference in the relationships, you could combine those rows and list C just once, and in the predecessor column, list both B and E together. You need to be able to take a table of dependencies and from it create a project network schedule, and to be able to go the other way around as well. Although your project scheduling software tool will take care of this for you, you need to understand these principles, and you'll need to be able to do this for the exam. So in this example of activities and predecessors and relationships, if you look at this table of dependencies, below it you can see the schedule network diagram that matches this table of dependencies. It shows activity A and activity D. Notice that neither of those have predecessors in the table of dependencies. Because of that, you know that they can come first. So they're drawn right here after the start. Then, as you look at activity B, it has A as a predecessor. So you can put B right after A. And that it's got an FS+1 relationship. So that's drawn here on the arrow between A and B. If you move down to C, you can see that it has B and E as predecessors, and that's why it's there in the diagram. And then E and F are similarly placed based on what the predecessors are. Now let's take a closer look at this schedule network diagram that we saw earlier. Activity A and B are connected by an arrow with no other qualifications, which tells you that it's a finish to start relationship, which is what it looks like by the placement of A and B. A comes first and then B. You can see that A, H, and K are all connected directly to the begin, meaning they have no predecessors, and these are the tasks that you can start off with right away. B and C are connected with arrows at the start or left-hand side of their boxes, and there's an SS on that arrow, which tells you that this is a start-to-start relationship between B and C. C and F are shown together here in this same column, but there's no direct connection between them that says they have to start at the same time. What they do have is a common predecessor, H, and a relationship of finish to start between H and C and H and F. So that's why C and F can start at the same time as soon as H is finished. Notice there's another start-to-start relationship here between H and I, but this time with a lag. That lag is represented, as all lags are, with a positive value, in this case plus 10, which is why even though they're connected start-to-start, it shows I a little further to the right on this diagram. You can follow through on the rest of these different activities to see examples, including L and J that are connected with a finish to finish. As you look at this diagram, notice that there are some points of convergence and some points of divergence. For example, if you look at C, that's a point of convergence where B and H both converge into C. C has multiple arrows coming into it, so C is a point of convergence. If you look at H, H is a point of divergence because it has multiple arrows coming out of it going to other activities. These are areas of particular concern when you're looking at risk on a project. Any place where you have convergence or divergence, that means that one activity can affect multiple other activities. A few other things I'd like to point out here are that in a schedule network diagram, notice that there are no activity durations, not yet. You've got the logical relationships, you even have some leads and lags, but the activities themselves don't have any durations in them. You don't know yet how long you expect A to take, or B, or any of the other activities in this network diagram. Also, this diagram does not yet take into account any limitations of resource availability. It may say that K can start right away, but as you look at the availability of resources for your project, you may find that the resources you need for K aren't available at the beginning of the project, and so K may need to be delayed because of that. Also, this type of schedule network diagram is what is known as activity on node, abbreviated AON, which means that the nodes or boxes of this diagram are what contain the activities, and the arrows are the connections between those activities. Not all network diagrams are represented as activity on node. Sometimes they're represented as activity on arrow. This is an example. Notice that it's not the nodes that have the activities in them, it's the arrows that have the activities in them. However, this does have a limitation in that you can't adequately capture some relationships using activity on arrow, and sometimes you need to introduce a dummy activity, in this case a dummy arrow between 2 and 3, in order to capture the relationships between activities. And this is why you don't see activity on arrow nearly as often as you see activity on node. The next schedule management document we come to is known as duration estimates, which is simply the estimated duration for each activity. As you put together these estimates, they do not include any of the leads or lags. Those have already been separately and independently estimated and put in place with the schedule network diagram. As you estimate the durations of individual activities, ignore these lags and just estimate how long that activity is expected to take. Each duration estimate should include some kind of indication of the range of possible estimates. If you have, for example, an activity that you expect will take 10 days, but it might take as few as 8, or it could take as many as 12, then you can record this as an estimate of 10 plus or minus 2 days, or you might just represent it as that range of 8 to 12 days. There should also be some indication of the certainty or uncertainty involved in your estimate. You may say in this particular case that this activity is expected to take 2 weeks or less, and you're about 85% confident in that estimate. There are many useful techniques for estimating, and we'll get into those as we get into the different tools and techniques of estimating when it comes to both schedule and cost. However, what you need to know at this point is that there is a document known as the basis of estimates, and in that document you record how you came up with those estimates. What were the techniques that you used? What were some of your assumptions or constraints that you applied? What are the ranges or confidence levels? And what are some of the risks involved in your estimates? All of this needs to be put in place in your basis of estimates document so that someone else or you later in the project can take a look at these estimates and remember how they were generated and be able to recreate these estimates. This is especially useful if there's a change later in the project which requires you to re-estimate the duration of individual activities. Risks should be documented in your basis of estimates for a couple of reasons. One, so that as risks during the project change, any risks that have affected your estimates could affect your re-estimate. If those risks have increased or decreased, that should prompt you to revisit your estimates. Also, there may be individual risks that are created or inherent in these activities that affect others. And by recording those here, you can revisit those occasionally to see if those risks are at the same level or if they no longer apply or if they've gotten worse and how those will affect other activities. You'll need this information in order to do some of the more sophisticated sensitivity analysis on your schedule that will allow you to better understand your schedule and what the risks are and come up with ways of mitigating those risks. Your project schedule, which is your familiar output of your schedule planning, can be represented in several different ways. Perhaps the most commonly recognized is the bar charts or Gantt charts that you see with tools such as Microsoft Project. These can be at various levels of detail. You could provide a very summary level set of bar charts for some of your key stakeholders for communication at a high level. For others, such as members of your team, you may need to have a much more detailed Gantt chart or bar chart that shows all of the detailed activities. Whatever the level, the bar chart is the most commonly recognized form of project schedule, but not the only one. A milestone chart is also considered a representation of a project schedule, as is the schedule network diagram. At this point, I'd like to talk a little bit about a subtle difference that you'll run into in the PMBOK guide between schedule model and schedule presentations. The schedule model is the term that they use to describe all of the information about the project schedule. It includes all of this information from the network diagram and all the logical dependencies and the activity estimates and all of that information, everything about the schedule. That's what they call the schedule model. Now, all of that data can be output or represented in various different ways. You could just generate a list of activities. You could generate your typical bar chart or Gantt chart. You can output the network diagram. And many of your software tools will quite readily give you all of these different outputs. All of these different outputs are referred to in the PMBOK guide as schedule presentations. They are limited views of the full set of data and information that is in the larger concept of a schedule model. Here's an example from the PMBOK guide. At the top you see a milestone schedule. And in that milestone schedule, you can see that it shows the milestone for the start of this new product. At the bottom of this milestone schedule, you can see the milestone for the finish of this new product. In between, you see the milestone dates for the completion of the two main components of this product, as well as the milestone of completing the integration of these components. Notice that these are milestones, so they're represented as single points in time of zero duration. Compare that to the summary schedule below it, which summarizes the same information, but in a little bit different way. The first thing you'll notice is that this is represented using bars, and these bars represent the start and end and duration of these different activities. It starts with the development of the product, and in this case, this summary level task shows the start and end all in one row. And below it, you can see the time frames for completing work packages 1 and 2, as well as the integration of those components. And from this, you can see when each of these activities starts and stops. In this next slide, you can see the more detailed version of this schedule, which shows some of the logical relationships and dependencies represented by arrows now, connecting these different bars and milestones, and provides a lot more detail about the design, build, and test activities involved. This is the level of detail that you would show and share with and consult with your team members. Each of these also show what's called a data date. You can see this dashed line down the middle, right about in the middle of period 3, and it's labeled data date. That is the date at which this report was generated and the data that this report is based on. Another term you may run across is schedule data. This represents all of the data in the schedule model that we talked about, which is a little bit different than the schedule presentation or project schedule that's output. It's all of that data about the schedule that is used to generate these outputs. At a minimum, this schedule data should include the milestones, the activities, the activity attributes that we've discussed, and documentation of assumptions and constraints and such. It's also quite common for the schedule data to include resource requirements, including diagrams and histograms of resources so that you can do some resource leveling and smoothing. It can also include alternative schedules, and it can also include schedule reserves that have been applied to individual activities or summary activities. It may also include some cash flow projections and order and delivery schedules that would be applicable to the schedule. For example, you may have projections on how much cash flow you're going to need at different stages along the way during the project, different projections of how much cash flow you expect to receive in funding, and different important dates at which you expect to place orders and to receive delivery from different suppliers. Your project will also have one or more project calendars. A project calendar is a calendar that identifies when work can be done on a project, the working days and shifts that are available for scheduled activities. This may be a simple Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day type of schedule, or you may have different shifts that people work on your project. You may also have teams located in different locations in different countries that have different project schedules and therefore different project calendars. You may also have different project calendars for different kinds of activities. For example, some activities may need to be done during the daytime and others may need to be done overnight, in which case you would have different project calendars for daytime versus nighttime activities. And finally, we come to the schedule baseline. This is the approved version of the schedule that has now been baselined and can only be changed by following the formal change control procedures that have been defined in your project. This schedule baseline is used as the basis for all of your comparison to actual results. Notice that the baseline doesn't change just because certain activities or milestones have passed. For example, you may have missed a milestone by 1 day, but you don't automatically go back and change your baseline to match those up. You maintain that baseline that shows that 1 day difference between the planned and actual milestone dates. Some key points to remember from this lesson include that the schedule management plan is the rule book for how you're going to manage the schedule, but doesn't include the details of the schedule for your project, and that a lot of the information and rules for your schedule management plan may come from your organization, from your program, your portfolio, or your PMO. Also, the schedule baseline is that version of the schedule which has been approved and cannot be changed without going through the formal change control process. The version of the schedule that has been approved is the schedule baseline and cannot be changed without following the formal change control procedures. Schedule network diagrams show all of the activities and their interdependencies and logical relationships with leads and lags, but don't yet show duration estimates. Project schedules come in two flavors, the model and the presentations. The model includes all of the schedule data, whereas the presentations are different types of outputs of this information, including outputs such as bar charts, Gantt charts, milestone, and other summary reports, even activity lists. And these are just a few of the important schedule management documents to be aware of. For more details, you can consult the PMBOK guide, pages 173 through 194 and 217 through 220. PM Ready is a publication of PM Guaranteed and is based on the Project Management Institute's PMBOK guide.